about what happened in DC. And I apologize, this is very a little scrambled here, but I'm just trying to put everything together, and it's taking so much work. Good, it looks like I'm online. It's taking so much work to assemble all of this stuff. And so I figured I would just do it on a live stream. It's going to be a little bit sloppy, so I apologize for that, but I think it's going to be the best way to get this information out, and I can always clean it up from there. So bear with me here, please. I've got a lot of, you can see that I've got a ton of information here, and I just kind of want to walk us through everything that happened. So before I do, let's kick this off with kind of a little bit more drama and pizzazz.
Now, too many see the protests as the problem. No, the problem is what forced your fellow citizens to take to the streets: persistent and poisonous inequities and injustice. And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
All right. And now before I go on any further, I do just want to check that my Facebook is indeed running.
Poisonous inequities and injustice.
Perfect.
Please.
Okay, so you can hear the video, it sounds like. Great, everything's working. All right, so that was a video from CNN earlier this year where they were inciting violence. Please tell me where protesters should be peaceful. Is that what we're hearing right now? That's not at all what we're hearing. So let's dive into this whole mess. On Monday, January 4th, there was a special thread or a special message posted on a forum thread. So there's a site called 4chan. It's kind of this underground site. And they have this thing where special numbers they call gets, like I get this, or it's a special get. So the get for this one was number 300 million, and it was Christ is King. So the chances of that happening are infinitesimally small. So when we're looking at the world right now, we're seeing this very dark and scary place. But remember, there are messages that are coming through that are telling us this does not need to be the way it is. Believe in a greater power. We are in a spiritual war right now. This is not a physical war. This is now a spiritual war, and the world is not as it seems. I'll continue to be posting this information as long as I can, but this is really kind of a deeper thing. So anyway, Christ is King got posted. It was number 300 million of all the messages. It's basically impossible to do that with the number of people on here. And so just a little tip of the hat, just a little wink and a nudge that, hey, things might be better than they look. So just be calm. All right, so now what I want to talk about is what's happening in DC. So I've published two different articles or videos previously on my Facebook account. I've got them linked to this post. The first one kind of walks through what's going on, but I want to set some context before we even get into that, right? Why do people care about Trump? I don't think they do. I actually don't care about Trump, the person. I care about what Trump does. And so I want to show you something that I've been working on. So we are in a battle for our freedoms, for our life and our liberty. And this is a spiritual battle. It does not, and it should not turn into a physical battle if we can help it. Although I do believe that they will come against us with force, and our job is to speak the truth in love and peace. So when we look at our political system right now, a lot of us are tending to think that it is a left and right system, that we have Democrats and we have Republicans, and that they're divided on the left-right spectrum. And that's what I thought for a long time too. And then more recently, what I've been realizing is, no, actually there's a second dimension to our political spectrum, and it's establishment versus populace. So it's the people versus the government. Now, I was sitting and talking to my uncle about this, and he actually works in DC, and he gave me some fantastic feedback on this spectrum. So he was saying, you know, one way that you could think about establishment and populist is actually more like vision. So what do the people want? That's the vision for the country. And then establishment. What's the strategy for achieving that vision? And that is when both of these sides work in unison. There's also been some studies on personality differences. So Democrats are typically more softies, right? That's how we think of them. Republicans tend to be kind of sticklers for the facts. Democrats want to be progressive and include everybody and push the agenda in a good way. And Republicans want to conserve values and, hey, it's working, it's not broken, let's not fix it, right? So when everything's functioning in a perfect way, these different dimensions all balance each other out, right? We have populist movement. We have the people that want to achieve something amazing in their lives, and then the establishment is there to guide them and to help build infrastructure. I mean, we've got so much amazing infrastructure. When I walk through a city and I see the sewers and the electricity and the amazing construction and all of the infrastructure there, that is an amazing work of art. You know, that is such an amazing thing that we have. So to assume that any one of these things are bad is the wrong approach. And I really appreciate my uncle for helping kind of temper my balance, because I was thinking it was a little bit more extreme. But now I do want to talk about where I think we're at right now. So I don't think we're in a healthy system. I think that we're actually kind of dealing with a system that's drifting apart. But I don't think we're drifting apart on the Democratic and Republican spectrum. I think that's the illusion that it's left versus right. I don't believe so. I believe that there's a corrupt establishment at the very top of the organization that's drifting upward into, it's gone from strategy, which is where they should be. So if they were in strategy, they'd be kind of down here, kind of more aligned with the populists, just giving some structure to the populists. But as we move up here, we have kind of authoritarianism, right? You can think of this as control. This is a control spectrum. So a little bit of control of strategy and tactics. Here, let me guide you into some structure and help you achieve what you want. When you get to the very top of authoritarian, you're talking down to them, saying, no, you must do this. This is the way I want you to do it. You don't have any free will. And I think that we're kind of starting to see this come out quite a bit with all these social media bans and stuff. If you're not aware of this, let me know in the comments, because there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So you definitely should be aware of this. On the populist side, you have the same thing, right? When we talk about democracies, so our system is a constitutional republic. It is not a democracy, because a democracy can turn into a mob. So at the best of times, you have a lot of manpower and a lot of energy and excitement about the world, and you have a peaceful and energized populace that can go and invest manpower into the vision and then be guided by strategy to achieve great things. Think about the mission to the moon or whatever, those different things that we've accomplished in the world. But at its worst, it turns into riots and mob-like behavior. And so what I'm seeing is that instead of being centered on this spectrum, we're drifting, we're splitting into these extreme fighting combative states. And so let's talk about, and then actually here what you see is that there's actually 4 parties right now. Well, I should say there's 3 parties. There's 3 main parties. We have at the very top of the establishment, we have what I call the dinos and the rhinos. So these are Republicans in name only and Democrats in name only. They look like they're Democratic leaders and they look like the Republican leaders, but in fact, they're what you could call a uniparty or an establishment party, and they are in it for themselves. They're really not listening to the people. And so what's happening then is, because they've drifted upwards, the people have started drifting downwards. And actually, I think this is the people's fault first and foremost. We've abdicated our control, our power, by becoming complacent about politics, by ignoring what these people are doing. We haven't been holding them accountable. And so they've been able to drift upwards because that's where the pressure is putting them, right? At the end of the day, these are just people too. They're not demons, they're not evil, although they're behaving in an evil way, and we need to correct that. But at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're drifting upward because there's no check on their power. And, in life, what we do is we search for fulfillment and satisfaction. And, maybe that means, I can make this career move, and you're not really thinking about the secondary and tertiary effects of your decisions, right? You're just trying to live your life and have a good life. And so if that goes unchecked without some kind of spiritual component or some kind of people giving you good feedback, you can just drift to the top of the spectrum and become an asshole. And that's really what I watched myself do this personally at the company that I started with Scott. I had become just a controlling asshole, and it kind of shocked me after stepping back from that, being like, this is, when we look at our political landscape, this is not about Trump, this is not about Biden, this is not about political parties, this is about me and you. This is about the sin that I've allowed in my life, the selfishness, the unawareness, just my personal failings. I see my personal failings in this entire system. And so I think there's a way to resolve this, but it requires a spiritual movement. The political movement is just hopelessly boggled. We really need to step up as a united people and prevent this. Then down on the populist side, what you have is, this is where we get into this left-right spectrum. And the reason for this, I'll get into it a little bit more later, but they're trying to divide us and distract us, right? We have progressives on the Democratic side, And then we have what's called the Lion Party on the Republican side. And these are the Trumpers, and these are like the Biden guys, right? And so both of these were very powerful populist movements that came out and have been challenging the establishment. And actually Bernie's party almost got the establishment twice. I believe that he was cheated out of the election, just like Trump was. And Trump's party, for whatever reason, he had a little bit more mustard behind him, right? And he was able to get in for that one term. But really, at the end of the day, these are the people, the populace, latching on to a charismatic leader and saying, we're going to push this guy through. Just ram him through with sheer force, right? And then these guys are institutional power, so they're using the institutions like police officers and the courts and obscure voting laws and different things like that, big business ties. They're using all of these institutional mechanics to suppress the people's will. And so our democracy right now is really functioning, or our republic is really just very unhealthy. We're very sick, and we need a spiritual movement to get out of this. All right, so let's go down and talk about the voter base. You can see that we've got the populist left and the populist right. We are on the spectrums, and I've got the Establishment Uniparty. They're actually in the center. They control all the organizations, all the institutions. They are the tippy top. They're the what we call the elites, and they're controlling institutional power. Everybody else is kind of on the outside, right? We don't get to see the benefits. This is not a peace and love society where everybody gets shared equally, right? This is a top-down authoritarian society, and so when you see socialism and socialist concepts starting to pop up, social welfare, social health care, all these different things, what you're actually seeing is an illusion. So it's the establishment party saying, oh, yeah, you just give more power to us and then we'll take care of you. But what's actually happening? Well, they're consolidating power in the center while the rest of us are hanging out on the edges, getting more and more kind of left out to dry. The way to actually solve this is we can implement communism ourselves. And it's not through the institutions, it's by giving to your neighbor, by loving your neighbor, by talking to your neighbors, right? If we live a life of love, that is true communism. That's done through the people, through a grassroots movement. If you allow an authoritarianism kind of socialism come through, that is the bad version of it. So communism actually can be good if we do it voluntarily. If we go, get off the couch, stop watching YouTube, and go help a neighbor. Help them fix something, help and talk to people. The way of love solves all of these problems. If we sit around and we wait for very much longer, it is going to get worse and worse and worse. Our political system has been in decline for a very long time, and it's accelerating. I think most people can agree that things are getting more chaotic if we are just leaving this all to the establishment. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what's happening. On the populist, in the primary elections this year, the populist left came in and gave Bernie Sanders 9 million votes. So that's a massive movement for the primaries. Joe Biden, on the other hand, got 19 million votes. So this is Joe Biden in the center. You can see Biden's down here, Trump's over here. I'll just go down. All right, so Biden got basically 19 million votes. So what happened? Well, he got extra 10 million votes. Now, I've got a little computer here because I'm trying to show that Biden is actually getting fake votes. He is being pushed through by the establishment, whereas Bernie and these guys Bernie and Trump are being pushed through by the people. And I've got, watch my other videos if you don't believe that. I think it's pretty clear, and I'll touch on those here in a little bit. And then Trump. In the primaries, Trump wasn't running. He had no contender. He got 18 million votes. He got the same number of votes as Biden did. So why did they crush Bernie by 10 million votes? Why did they do that? So one of the things is they held Bernie down through the media and stuff. They really pushed him down, and he was really selling a communist idea. I think he believes in this good version of communism, but the good version of communism needs to be a grassroots movement. It should not be a top-down movement, right? And so they were able to use that messaging to really destroy him, because I think a lot of people are very afraid of the top-down. I am personally afraid of the top-down communist or socialist or authoritarian. Like, don't let these words hijack you, right? Let's throw out all our preconceived notions and just try to communicate with some fuzzy language. We're trying to avoid a top-down authoritarian rule. And so if they can spin Bernie's message to be top-down authoritarianism, then people are afraid of him, right? So that's why they eventually said, okay, we can't go with this guy. We got to go with Biden. And so then they came in. And why did they push it to 19 million? Well, they're trying to outdo Trump because they want a consistent message down the road. All right, and then we get into the general elections. And look at what happened. We had 81 million votes and 74 million votes for Trump. Now, there are the number of ballots with contested that have fraudulent So there's a huge variety of types of fraud that I'll show you in a second here. But there have been over 2 million different ballots. So I've got 3 here. I should probably switch this to 2, but there's at least 2 million ballots that have been touched by fraud through at least one of these mechanisms. And so those are actually all for Biden at the moment. And then you see that there's a massive populist movement behind Trump. Trump, in his first run, he got 63 million votes. He's at 74 million votes this year, and that's assuming that no votes were taken away from him, right? Which I don't believe. I think both Bernie and Trump got suppressed. And so what that means is Trump somehow gained 11 million votes as a re-incumbent. For context, Barack Obama, when he ran his second term, he lost 3 million votes. So this is a major thing, and yet Biden came out of nowhere with 81 million votes. It's very suspicious. And then finally, what I think we're seeing with these little computer symbols is that what a good election system should be. Oops. Okay. There we go. That was strange. What a good election system should be is it should be the people, right? This is the big group of people, and it should be the people pushing through their will into the electorate. And the problem is that when you have an establishment party, so deep state actors, deep state is just the people that have been in government for a long time. They're not elected, right? When a new administration comes in, they hire these people, and those people stay in office. So they actually have more institutional power than a president and his team, which are coming in for 4 years. Having started a business, I know when you bring a person in, it takes a long time to train them. And that's with a very small business. Imagine running something as big as the U.S. government, a multi-trillion-dollar organization. It's just going to take a long time to figure out what's happening, right? So you've got deep state actors. You've got corporate actors. We're seeing Facebook and Google and Amazon and Apple, all of these different massive organizations, the news media, coming out and pushing their will on different actors, right? And they're using all kinds of reasoning and rationales for here's why we're doing it, it's good, it's fine, don't worry about it. But if you start to watch the pattern of what's going on, you'll see that they are exercising their own will. For example, Mark Zuckerberg spent $450 million on the election this year. Actually, I can show you that really quickly, I believe. Let me just see. I wasn't planning on doing this, but here we go. Here's top contributors for Joe Biden. Look at this. Alphabet, 4 million. University of California, 3 million. U.S. government, 2 million. Microsoft, 2 million. Amazon, 2 million. So what do you think is going on here, right? Now, this is just donations to Joe Biden. What you probably don't know is that for example, Zuckerberg purchased a bunch of drop boxes for the I think it was Georgia. I can't remember the state exactly. But so there's a lot of weird things going on. And then foreign influences. You've got in my previous video, I talked about Hunter Biden, the scandal where he was being paid. He's received multiple $6 million and $3 million transfers from Chinese banks. He's sitting on the board of Burisma, which is a Ukrainian board, stuff like that. So this kind of thing, if it's happening, it looks very much like it is illegal. And this is subverting the will of the people. All right, and then finally, power dynamics. What's happening? So I've got a list of the different power dynamics. The power dynamics here on the populist left and populist right is the people. It's the will of the people. So wherever the people think is right, that should be what's happening. And their will should be translated into judicial, executive, and legislative branches. But what's happening, and this should not be happening, this deep state stuff where it's through education, through foreign actors, through Wall Street, all these things, it should not be able to influence this. But the problem is it is influencing it right now. So we have a real challenge on our hands. All right, so that will get us through populist movements, the initial thing. But let me just show you now what's happening. So I want to talk about my experience at the Trump rally. So this was one of the shots that I had taken. I am up on the scaffolding, and you can see this picture just doesn't do it justice. There is an ocean of people. Look how dense that is. And what you probably can't really tell from this is blocks and blocks back. It's packed with people. There's people everywhere. This is another street over here, and another street over here. They're all packed as far as you can see. And this wasn't even the worst, the maximum size. I believe At one point, there was dozens of vehicles kind of stranded in the mass. There's just a mountain, a wave of people. And so initially, I even said this in my video, I was just like, wow, it's breathtaking how many people came out. Here's another view of it. This was earlier in the day at the Trump rally, and you can see that this is a hill. Look at the density of this crowd. Look at how many people are here. This is insane. And what you've not seen is it goes on and on in both directions. You know, when we came, we were probably right over here, and we were the only people in the line. And about 10 to 15 minutes later, well, let's say maybe 30 minutes later, it had gone down the street. The line was so big. It was incredible. But what I came away with from this experience was I also came away with understanding, oh, you know what? I remember that there was massive crowds after the George Floyd movement too. It was universally condemned that, hey, it's not okay to do that kind of thing. Even in a dramatic situation, that is really a serious problem. And I remember over the summer, there was millions of people that came out through all the demonstrations, right? And so let's go take a look at that really quick. These were the original Black Lives Matter movements. Look at this. Look at how dense this is. This is incredible, the turnout for these movements. This is unbelievable. Look at all these guys here, bowed heads in prayer. Is this what we associate with BLM anymore? No, this is not what we think of. So look at how peaceful, look at this demonstration. Now, they're angry, and the Trumpers were angry too, right? We're angry that the divide between the establishment and the people is splitting, and so people are coming out and being angry, but they are not violent. We are sending a message to the world, but we are not violent. Now, as a deep state actor or as an establishment actor, how do you hang on to control? Well, let's not talk about that quite yet. Let's actually go into why Trump. You know, why are people coming out for Trump now? I've covered this in other videos, so I'm going to go through this really quick. So first of all, did you know Trump is actually the most admired man in 2020? This actually happened. This happened after he supposedly lost the election. He dethroned Obama. Biden, nowhere to be seen, even though he had 81 million votes. Trump is the most admired man, and this is by a. Let's just go look it up here, so I'm not just citing it. Trump most admired man. Right, here you go. New York Post, Politico, NPR. So this is a credible thing, right? I'm not just making this up. Trump actually is the most admired man, won that just recently. And then what about election fraud? So when we get in here, now I've gone through these before. I'm just going to skim through them. Biden got 81 million votes. Obama got 69 million. Trump got 74 million. These are the top 3 votes in history. When you go through these, though, you're going to see that it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Biden got 11 million more votes than Obama did, and yet he was on half of the counties, right? Look at the map difference here. Oh, I guess this must be an old one. So anyway, go check out my other videos. That's linked. And then also my most recent video, the types of fraud. So we get into like, why are people concerned about this election? Well, look at all these yellow states are being contested when they pushed him through. You know, Mike Pence was actually supposed to send those electors back to the states and saying, hey, you can't send me electors if you have active litigation and if you're, you know, if there's dueling electors. You can't be sending that back to me. You need to resolve your issues in your state and then do it. But they just jammed it through. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. Over 50 lawsuits, almost 1,000 witnesses came out, right? You're telling me that 1,000 witnesses is just a giant conspiracy? That's crazy. I just can't, you know, that's too skeptical. And then look at this process-related fraud. I've got 12 different types of process-related fraud here. That is not comprehensive. That's just some of the things. I've got 12 more types of ballot-related fraud. This is just a handful of the things. I can find so much more. The problem is that things are moving so fast, I can't actually document everything. So this is massive what's going on right now. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the intention in DC, right? So people support Trump and actually want to stop a coup from happening. There is a coup happening right now, and it's called election fraud. That's what's actually happening. And they definitely don't want to start one. And let's just go through this a little bit. So when we were walking over, there's a building that we passed, and it had this on the side of the building. You can actually see the stoplights right here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment or religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, of abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances. I had a little trouble reading that. So essentially what this is saying is that the whole point of the Constitution is to prevent this overreach by the establishment. And it is all about peaceably assembling. So the key word there is peaceably. If they can twist this into violence, then they can say, oh, it wasn't peaceful, it was this horrible thing. That's what they did with Black Lives Matter. Remember, do you remember the stories about people they would show up to these protests, these peaceful protests, and then there would be bricks laying around, right? And there would be people that would start throwing bricks. And that was the first time that we've seen massive populist movements like this. Well, I shouldn't say, I mean, there's been big populist movements all throughout the past. These started very peaceful, though, and they were massive, and then they kind of degraded into violence. And kind of in hindsight, for me, what I realized is like, oh, it's a game. That's also what happened to me on the 6th. After that, I was like, oh, no matter what you do, this is why it says avoid all appearances of evil, because if you are even close to evil, they can take that and twist it and manipulate it with lies, right? So this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to push out a counter narrative to what they're doing. All right, so let's talk about, one of the things I've heard that people are like, well, Trump gave them a wink and a nod, like he was clearly trying to push them over there. And I want to go through that really quick.
And only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country.
All right, so that was one video. Let's go take a look at some more here.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. Anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity.
All right. So that was two of them. Now, one of the things I've heard as well, there's a lot of other things in there that he was kind of winking and nodding at. But let's take a look at what's going on here. So this is from the National Pulse. It's very difficult to find stuff, but look at this. The Washington Post also states, the Capitol was breached within 15 minutes. So let's just try run through this. And I'm hoping I've got the right thing. So basically the idea was that Trump kind of gave everybody a wink and a nod, and then they all went over and they broke into the building, right? But when you actually look at the timeline, so Trump came to the event late. It was scheduled to start at 11. He started an hour late at 12. And then he didn't actually finish his speech until 1:11 p.m. Now, there's about a 45-minute walk between the two locations. That's what they're saying. I believe Tim and Dad and I did that a little bit faster than 45 minutes. I don't know if I'd say it was, well, in a crowd, it would certainly be 45 minutes, right? I guess we left early, so we were able to walk unimpeded. So that is, and I think, thinking back, it did take them a very long time to get over. Now, Tim and I, we left just minutes into his speech. I think we stayed for about 5 minutes, and then we were like, well, we were too far back. We couldn't really hear anything, so we took off. When we got to the Capitol building, there was already a crowd. There was guys that had jumped over the wall, and they were in that central location already. There was already guys on the towers outside. They hadn't mounted the scaffolding yet, but they were already on the towers. That means they took a lot of land already. There was some plastic fences that had been pushed down. I didn't have time to go look at that. I've got video of this stuff. I don't know if I had video of that. I think I had to turn my camera off because I thought we were leaving. So unfortunately, I don't have that. I think I could maybe find it. But essentially, there had already been walls broken down, not walls, like flimsy little fencing that had just been knocked over, essentially. And that would be the first line of defense, right? No, it was unguarded. It wasn't there. But there's already people in there. Whoever these people were, there's a handful of people in there. They'd already taken a tower, and they were already going. So these are clearly, they're not at the Trump speech. They're already in there. They had microphones. They were trying to push everybody forward really aggressively with their microphones saying, come on, we need help. Everybody get up here. Everybody get up here. They just kept messaging over and over and over. So rioters who breached the perimeter would have had to leave Trump's speech by 11 a.m. precisely, or sorry, 12 p.m. precisely to make it in time for the break-in. The West Side was breached within 15 minutes, which means that the Capitol was breached over an hour before Trump attendees could have begun to arrive. The Capitol was breached before Trump finished his speech. So all of this messaging around Trump forcing people to go over and be crazy is not true. This is propaganda. This is a lie. Now, you can look up these own articles for yourself. I would, when you are looking up information, please use DuckDuckGo or an alternative. Do not use Google. You will not find this kind of stuff in Google. Google has censored all of this information. And if you don't believe me, go watch my other video on the most secure election. I actually do some side-by-side comparisons right there in my video, and I'll show you the difference between Google search results and DuckDuckGo search results. So it's pretty shocking to see. All right. So basically what I'm saying is there was a populist movement that came out for Trump. Trump and the rest of them wanted to be peaceful. And now you've seen some evidence of that. You've seen evidence of, they couldn't have actually made it. The Capitol was actually breached before the crowd got there, not after, right? So that's debunking the narrative. If you got a problem with this, comment and I'll give you more information on it. But now let's talk about why did Trumpers actually go? So I want to play this segment from the Washington Post, by the way. If you see up here, this is the Washington Post. This is not some third party.
Because the House and the Senate were going to be voting on getting the Electoral College certified, and we thought that they should listen to the voter fraud allegations and do an investigation and look into it.
I planned my trip maybe a week to 10 days ago, but my commander asked me to come, and I did that.
I started my day at 5:30 in the morning, and 38-degree temperature, and we walked down here, stood in the cold mud until 11 o'clock. And then when Trump finished, of course, he never said storm the Capitol. He never said that. They put that out on different reports. He never said that. But he says, we're going to go there, we're going to cheer for the heroes, and there's some we may not be cheering for. And when we walked down here, there was already quite a crowd at the Capitol. We were trying to get closer. I mean, I'm one who said there's a door to this place. I mean, I did say that to the crowd. There's a door to this place. So, but I couldn't even get close to the steps.
10 of us, Vietnamese community, got together. And we were by that memorial, and we marched up here. And I actually went all the way up to that little thing in the middle. I saw people taking pictures, having flags, talking about each other, giving people positive notes. It was very peaceful.
We were all moving towards the steps and up the Capitol, and we saw people going up the stairs. But I'm like buried in people. I mean, I can barely see over them. I can just barely see up the stairs. And then shortly as we were kind of making our way up there, a few people ran out and said that the Capitol had been stormed.
It was very, very disappointing, the lack of security. I think you could have walked up, there was zero presence. Now the perimeter was state police and local, was covered with roads, but there was no support in there from local police and I'm not disrespecting them because I'm thankful for them and I support the blue. I think they had instructions to let it go.
We just went up to the stairs. There's no police, there's nothing that was stopping us. We were hanging out all over the place.
I got to tell you, I was out there and the Capitol Police never asked us to leave. There was no megaphone saying, please move off these premises. There was no one asking us to do anything. But instead, the police were holding a line, And every now and then they would throw a flash bomb or tear gas into the crowd unannounced. And they weren't asking us to leave. It was not clear what was asked of us.
Yeah, with so many people. We actually made a little pathway for people to go up and circulate the people that go down. It was like a picture moment. You know, you go up there for a scene and some shot, and I went up there. People were singing national anthem. We were doing, we were actually very peaceful, and it was just a really nice rally.
But the American people own that place, and our commander asked us to walk and march to this place. He did not instruct us to wreak havoc and damage. So I want to apologize for anybody that did that, because I don't know who they did, and I don't have the facts on why. But that was uncalled for anybody to do it.
I thought the people that took the Capitol grounds were showing that they really wanted their voices to be heard. I thought the people that broke into the Capitol went too far.
I saw they break the window, but that was it. So there were still thousands of people sitting around up there with me, and all of us swarmed into that window? No, we just sat there. They're like, whoever that guy went in there, good for him.
That was shameful. Absolutely shameful. Not the violence. Not the violence. It was not that, although I don't condone it, and it was bad, and I'm sorry about what happened. But the way those Congress people and senators treated us, the way they treated us, it was shameful.
But I think the Constitution and the way things played out was the way it was set out to be. And I feel like President Trump did not interfere with the process. And I feel like he's got to let the process work and not interfere. And I think that's the type of person and his family is.
We own that building. That is our government. And the people who were inside of that building last night should have been representing us. They should have been. And those people and my senators, Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty, who were supported by Trump and who came out loud and said we will object to the electors, changed their tune and said it was Trump's fault and said we cannot condone this violence.
I think they use the violence, which doesn't even, there was violence, of course, but there's so many more people who didn't take part. And I think that the politicians who caved in last night and voted to certify the fraudulent elections, I think they took the easy road.
For those men that certified that election, they sealed their fate, but they will not seal the fate of this country. I promise you. This is not a sprint. We're not a race to the finish line.
So will we be back? Patriots will be back. Patriots will be back for sure.
All right. So, a little bit different narrative than what you're seeing on the mainstream news, right? What we like to call now is the legacy news, because I certainly am not going to be supporting them or watching them anymore. And let's talk about why. Let's actually go and take a look at the narrative that they're pushing out, right? So, what's going on right now is the establishment can only win. There's such a massive populist movement on both sides, which we've already covered. They can only win if they divide us and make us fight each other. Now let's go take a look at this.
Look, I was excited to be here to talk basketball, but the world has dramatically changed in the last 48 hours. Tuesday, all eyes were here on Georgia as history was made. Raphael Warnock became the first.
By the way, why is this so positive? Because the same techniques they used to steal the presidential election were used in this race again. I haven't had time to dig in and actually do a video on this. If you disbelieve election stealing, that's totally fine. But notice the difference in tone. Why is this so happy and positive? It's because it's on point, on message, on target. This is confirming their narrative, and this is what we've got to watch out for. So just notice the dramatic shift in mood here.
African American to win a Senate race in the state, and Jon Ossoff.
By the way, Jon Ossoff has been arrested on, let's just go pull this up. Jon Ossoff, domestic abuse. Mine. Okay, so here we go I actually didn't pull this up ahead of time, so sorry. Sometimes you got to sift through a lot of this stuff to find it. Jon Ossoff was accused of the domestic violence incident. I wonder if I can just find a image here quick. Nope. Yeah, so it looks like I was able to find this earlier, and now it's actually a little bit harder to find this. So I won't get distracted. Okay, I'll stick to the point here. There is some concerns with these guys.
Another Democrat won the state's other Senate seat. These were landmark victories that both the NBA and WNBA played a part in, but things quickly shifted Wednesday to Washington, D.C., where supporters of President Trump tried to disrupt the certification of the Electoral College by storming the nation's capital. It was a shocking and brazen attack on our democracy as these domestic terrorists breached security and invaded both the Senate and the House. 5 people lost their lives, including a U.S. Capitol policeman, as the world watched in horror. Now, the reaction was swift around the NBA as players knelt in solidarity at the Miami and...
Okay, so you kind of get the theme going on there. All right, so one of the techniques that they use is they like to twist things, right? In fact, what I've been watching is that it's not like they just they'll do little twists sometimes, but in a lot of cases they will do 180-degree flips, the exact opposite of what happened. These guys have a lot of balls, right? Their ability to lie is unbelievably good. So, but let's keep watching this really quick here, just to point this out.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite.
Now, can I jump in here really quick and just say, why are they so enthusiastic about violence here? Well, the reason is because they're trying to split black and white Americans apart, right? The Black Lives Matter movement came out, and it was a very peaceful movement of all colors, all races, all creeds, the same as the Trump movement. All races, all colors, all creeds. But Black Lives Matter is predominantly more black, and the Trump movement is predominantly more white. So what they're doing is they're identifying that one key dimension, and they're starting to break it apart. So they're inciting violence here to drive white people insane about the Black Lives Matter movement. And now they're doing the exact same thing with the Trump stuff. So just keep your eyes on all these little games that they're playing. These guys are not, they are pathological liars.
And peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. So even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look at his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Okay, let's do a little more.
While the burning and looting has shocked the nation, it's also divided those on the front lines of the protests.
Ain't nobody coming to protect us.
Let me tell you
We got to start our own life.
I understand. But let me tell you something right here. This 16, he's 16.
They gonna kill him next
He's
week.
16.
What we gonna do?
You tell me.
What we gonna
But
do?
this ain't the way.
All right, did you guys catch that? What is going on here? Are these black people just crazy and rioting and looting? No. No. Some of them are, right? This is what I saw happen with the Trump rally. They have instigators. They are going crazy, and you've got a couple unruly people that will fall in line and do that, if the opportunistic people. But that is not the narrative that we should be thinking about. This is not the millions of people that have come out in the last year are not doing this. Oops. Let me just see what this one is.
Say Black Lives Matter. You killed your home. You killed a child. You ain't do nothing to nobody. You killed an 8-year-old child.
It is frustrating to hear some folks say that you've been the beneficiary of privilege.
Now look at this. This is the Black Lives Matter movement. What color are these people? What's going on here? Why are we seeing this happen? Also, look at the way they're dressed. What we have is we have an extreme base of activists, very small, that are very good at instigating issues and problems. So I'm not going to sit on these too much. There's a bunch of this stuff. If you're ever interested, you can find this stuff or hit me up. More than happy to provide information. But I think that should be a good little snapshot. This is just a very tiny sample of what's going on, right? Did you notice the difference between that and the previous video that we watched? Peace and love versus hate. Now, what do they want? They want riots and death. This is the goal. The purpose is to create chaos. So let's take a look at this, right? This is the goal. This is what they want. Destruction. This is what they want. Destruction. Did you see this CNN post? Fiery, but mostly peaceful protests after police shooting. What's up with that headline, right? That's not journalism. That's insane. So the reason they're doing this is they're trying to make people insane. They are trying to split the populace apart so that they can continue to maneuver under the radar, and it's been working great. All right, let's take a look at the looters. So again, if you smash in the windows and doors and you start having people go in and looting, you're going to get other people to go in, right? They had marched up the Capitol building and I followed them with the camera. You're going to get people to go along if you do stuff. And this is just part of life. This is why they do it, because it's effective, it works. And this is also where it comes in to avoid all appearances of evil, because otherwise it will be hijacked. But at some point we have to wake up. We can't keep falling for these games. We have to understand what they're doing, because they are very good at it. All right, and then let's take a look at the Black Lives Matter movement. So one of the realizations I came to is that they've been hijacking this stuff forever, and they're very good at it, but we're starting to wake up. We're starting to see what they're doing, and we're not falling for it as much anymore. So with the Trump protest in D.C., what happened? 5 people were killed, right? I think like 60 people or something, maybe it's probably more than that now, were thrown in jail. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That was too violent. But let's also take a look at what happened here. Black Lives Matter injures 1,000 police officers, kills 36 people, does $8 billion in damage, right? I mean, that's pretty insane. Let's take a look at another one. Black Lives Matter protests. They've got 26 people on this list here. People killed during these protests. David Dorn, David McAdie, Chris Beatty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You've got all these people, right, that have been killed during these protests. Were they killed by the peaceful civilians? No. These are fake. These are, I shouldn't say they're fake, they're real deaths, but this is not the will of the populace. This is not to kill people. Think about yourself. Do you want to kill people? I don't want to kill people. I want to go in peace and love. I just want to enjoy my life. So who is doing this? I don't think any of us are doing this. These are tricks and games. Why are they playing these tricks and games? Because they want to enact military law. They want to use force to, remember that spectrum, right? Remember the spectrum. The establishment authoritarians must exert top-down control on the populace. And the way that they can do that is if there's a ton of violence, they can bring out troops. So take a look at what happened with the Black Lives Matter stuff, right? Officers on the streets. Look at this gear. This is some intense gear. These are a scary group of people. Over here, look at this. Look at all of that tear gas. Look at this insanity. Now, these are some Antifa protesters, but look at what is going on, right? This is what they actually want. They want to lock down the people. Ordinary civilians are not going to want to go up against this kind of stuff, or tanks. Remember Tiananmen Square, right? This is the goal, to bring us to this point. And how do they do it? Well, they do it with false flag operations. So let's take a little look at what's actually going on.
On Summit, and one marked state trooper vehicle, 2 black SUVs, there's 3 state trooper vehicles escorted, 4 Antifa shuttle buses right here front center. There was actually 5 vehicles total. There was 3 up front, 2 in the back. They escorted right here, waited for them to get off their buses, and they had the state troopers unloaded and took their positions. Watch. There's that guy. He had his lights on. They were coming, and then there's the ones up front too. They escorted, and each one of those buses are labeled. So all paid charter buses.
Look at that, bro.
Here's the black SUVs up front, and look, wait till you see who leads it.
Wow, they freaking brought damn Antifa.
You see that? So they're escorting buses full of Antifa. These are trained, organized inciters, basically, and you've got police vehicles right here. Now, oh, circumstantial, you say. Oh, that's not that big a deal. Well, let's just keep looking. Let's just keep watching. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, let me go to this other one here. Oh, also, look at, so a little step back. I'll go right back into the false flag stuff, but they are deceptive. So here's another one. I forgot to do this. Another one about their deception. So just watch when we say, you know, we came out to try to be peaceful. Look at what they do with this. Now, this is slightly different, but you'll catch what's going on here.
Tim? Well, Greg, at the White House on Thursday, Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany came out to the podium and condemned the violence that took place at the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday in the strongest possible terms.
I am here to deliver this message on behalf of the entire White House. Let me be clear. The violence we saw yesterday at our nation's Capitol was appalling, reprehensible, and antithetical to the American way. We condemn it, the President and this administration, in the strongest possible terms. It is unacceptable, and those that broke the law should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. What we saw yesterday was a group of violent rioters undermining the legitimate First Amendment rights of the many thousands who came to peacefully have their voices heard in our nation's capital. Those who violently besieged our capital are the opposite of everything this administration stands for.
Well, as you can imagine, and as you're probably not surprised, Big Tech is doing their best to censor anything
coming from the current administration. One of our team members was watching this press release last night on Instagram with the audio off, and the captions generated by Instagram were just, let's just say, slightly off. In reference to the violence at the Capitol, she says, we condemn it. You heard her just say it. We condemn it. The President condemns it. But the caption says, we condemn the President. And Greg, you know, this...
All right, so you can see that, happenstance, right? No big deal. No, there's actually something going on, and it's one of these things by themselves is not that big a deal. 5 of them, not that big a deal. But at what point is it too many, right? So let's go take a look at what was going on now, back to the instigation, the false flag kind of attempts. Take a little look at that. Now this is footage of the Capitol where they're coming on in. We have their outside, and there's a little window here that's open. Look at that. What's going on? There's a person inside handing something outside. Notice that the glass is broken up here. Okay. So this is one of the guys that was caught. Well, actually, I've got a couple more videos here, actually, that we can go through. Let's go take a look at this one. You think this is the will of the people? This guy's smashing this window. Do you hear her yelling, Antifa, Antifa, Antifa? Look at that. This guy's jumping on him, trying to stop him from doing this. This is not, the crowd is not trying to break in. Oops. That's just one example. I actually want to play you the video that I personally took. Let me see if I can do that. Give me one moment here. Because I saw the exact same thing. I saw where did I have this video? Give me 1 second here because I actually want to just show that I truly did this. All right, so I want to show you my video here of the exact same thing.
Oh, I see.
Right here. So, initially what we saw is that these guys, there was some scaffolding here on the ground, and these three guys hopped on the scaffolding and started raising that up the building, which everybody was kind of excited about that. That's really cool. Hang some flags. You know, that's a great, what a cool picture that would be. They could see over the whole thing. So I went over because I was like, why didn't they bring cameras? There's nobody up there with a camera. That's really weird. I wanted to try go over and get on that thing so I could take a picture of this massive crowd. I thought the crowd was just so incredible that day.
They didn't bring anybody with a camera. What the hell? Oh, don't do that.
You hear that? Everybody's yelling, no, don't. This guy's trying to break in the window right over here. This guy is trying to break in the window.
That's just dumb. Hey, stop that! Don't do that! Don't do that!
Look at that. Now they get so flustered, they get so scared that they can't even operate the machinery. They're coming down, they're trying to get down because the crowd is getting really angry.
I got a little flustered.
All right. So I just wanted to show you, the protesters were not there to cause violence, right? Here's yet one more. Oh, I guess this is the same one. Never mind. All right. Let me just go check this really quick. Got to check my script. I'm getting a little bit, just got to remember what was going on. All right, so we walked through. They had hired Antifa, claims of that. We went through this false flags operation. Did you know the cops actually let people in? Why were there people in there? So I actually want to go back to my video really quick here, because I saw this happen firsthand. All right, give me 1 second. All right, I'm just getting up to the top level here.
Oh my God, it's brutal. Tear gas. Thousands of people. Wow, they got inside, huh?
So when we got up, the doors were open. Now, there was another stream of guy that was up a little bit before me, and I was trying so hard to find it. The problem is if I don't download these videos, they get taken offline. They're totally removed. They're impossible to find. There was a guy up before me where he was one of the very first people up here. There's just a handful of people up here, and the doors were wide open. So that's very suspicious. Now, here is some more stuff to confirm that. It's not just one instance of this. Let's go take a look at what was going on. Look at this.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go.
Now, who do you think this guy is? Right? What is this guy doing? Why is he behind the cop line waving people in? Does that make a lot of sense to you?
And they just breached the Capitol again.
All right, they breached the Capitol again. Breached, right? There was very little security. Check this out. What's going on here? Taking a selfie with the officers in the Capitol. Taking a selfie of the officers with the officers in the Capitol.
ACAF, ACAF. ACAF, ACAF.
Back really quick.
ACAF, ACAF.
Do you see this? They're standing in line. This is not a coup attempt. This is not a violent riot. Things would be much different if that was the case. They're standing in line, taking pictures with the cops. Look at these cops back here in riot gear, right?
ACAF, ACAF.
Okay. Now, let's go head over here really quick. A couple more pieces of footage for the people inside of the Capitol. Now, this guy here is actually a newly elected West Virginia House Delegate, right? House Delegate. So this guy's in our political system, which should tell you something, that this is a people's movement. We believe in this. There's no apologies for what happened here. The problem was the violence instigated by these fake actors.
The door's trapped.
Do you hear battering rams? Are they breaking their way in? Do you see this? Doors opening from the inside.
Yeah!
Also, did you notice how they opened?
We're going in. Easy. Easy, easy. They're in, they're in, they're in. Move! Move! Keep it moving, baby.
Alright, I'm just going to try fast forward a little bit here.
Right over there. Make a hole! Make a hole! We're in, baby. Stop pushing, guys. Stop pushing. Stop pushing.
Alright, well, they get in. It doesn't seem like that was extremely violent by any sense. In fact, it looks like the doors got opened somehow. Because, let me tell you, those doors were thick. You're not going to break into those very easily. Here's another one.
Dude, we're in the Capitol right now.
Underscore sign 53 cents. Occupy the Capitol.
Do these seem like violent protesters? Violent rioters? They're dancing in the window. These guys don't have an agenda.
Occupy the Capitol, let's go! We ain't leaving this bitch! I am sleeping in this room. I call this chair.
Jules game for
Occupy the Capitol.
Yeah.
All right. So this big scary riot. They're divvying rooms for who gets to nap there, right? I just don't think the story that we're hearing is at all accurate. Now let's talk about the murders. So they're saying, oh, a cop was killed. A cop was killed. This clearly means it's a horrible, evil riot. Now, actually, Tim and I had captured, I believe on footage, and I could even go look for it here, but I won't at the moment. But when Tim and I were there, there was 2 guys pulled out on stretchers, CPR being done, and what they were saying is that, well, the tear gas in this small enclosed space, these were older guys, and in this small enclosed space, tear gas can really mess with people's hearts. And so we had 2 guys down from that we personally saw go out. There was another death, which was a cop. There was another death, which was a woman, and there was one other that I don't remember what that was. Let's go take a look at the cop's death, right? So they're saying, oh, this officer was slain. He was murdered in cold blood by these crazy rioters. Well, you know, this is the New York Post, second biggest media outlet in the country. So they're saying it's a little more complicated. Let me just try to remember. I'm trying to remember what I was going to point out in this article. Oops. Oh, yes. Okay, so this guy is actually a Trump supporter. Here we go. Sitnik was a Trump supporter himself. He had written letters to his congressman opposing Trump's impeachment. Right? So not maybe the story that you've been hearing. And then there's one more here, I believe. Like many Trump supporters who are now being censored, he believed that the system is fundamentally rigged in favor of a narrow elite. He had used fiery rhetoric, even called for regime change in America. This cop believed in the movement, right? Now let's go over here. Why did he die? Was he murdered by Trump supporters? Sitnik's death, according to sources familiar with the matter, authorities believe Sitnik's death was driven by a medical condition. They're investigating attacks that he was attacked with a fire extinguisher. So far, attacks have not been confirmed. They're looking for video of this, but they said it's believed that his death was driven by a medical condition. All right. Now, the woman that got murdered, same kind of thing. I really wish they had pulled down the primary source of information on this, but they had a full video of what happened. I'm debating. It looks like I'm not going to be able to play this video, though, which is a bummer because it would be good if we could see it. Shoot. I'm not able to play it. Let me see here. So I was actually on the stairs on the way back when this happened. We all got reports. All right, so this may be graphic. So for those of you that want to close your eyes or mute this, this is inside the Congress after shots were fired. Got to dig around for this thing. Shoot, yeah, I can't get to it. It was actually right here. Well, needless to say, so I think we've seen what happened with the cop, where he was actually a Trump supporter in favor of the movement, died by a medical condition, most likely. Authorities believe, it said authorities believe, not just me. And the woman that was murdered, there's a video of her climbing through a window, and on her same side of that window are many officers. I wonder if I can just find... There was actually officers with her on her side that I'm now unable to find. Well, that's a bummer, but I won't do that. If you doubt me, that's fine. Okay, so a lot of suspicious stuff going on here. By the way, I was there. I saw doors wide open when I went up. So we're talking about how can they win, right? So initially we covered that this is a massive populist movement where the people as a whole on both sides are saying, hey, something's wrong with our system. And then what we're seeing is a bunch of tactics on how do we divide the people and distract them. Chase over here, look over here. You know, don't come at us. We're not the bad guys. You guys are the bad guys. And we're fighting in between each other. And the way they're doing this is that they're conscripting these false actors to come in, and then they're using the media to just dramatically slant what's going on. All right, what is the goal of this? Well, they're trying to demoralize the populace. The only way that we can stand up against this is to stand united, to stand together and say enough is enough, right? And in hindsight, what I was thinking about the Capitol is I totally agree with what was done there. I'm very proud of being there and speaking my mind. But we need to avoid any indication of evil. And so really the way to do that in hindsight would have been to stay a little bit back. And we want the movement to be a movement of peace, love, and truth, to the point where the cops themselves hand over the keys to the building, right? The politicians have to give up, right? At the end of the day, if the people won't cooperate, and remember, cops, they're just your neighbors, right? They're just normal people too. I grew up with cops. Jewel Hansen actually drove me to basketball 3 days a week. Every morning I rode with the sheriff in his car to play basketball. They're just people. They're good people. And they will support us unless you come out in violence. The same with the military. How many kids, how many boys and friends do you know, brothers, sons, that are serving in the military? These are people. These are real human beings. And they will support a populist movement that's peaceful and not distracted by this kind of stuff, right? The media can lie all you want. Now, our job is to stand up in peace, truth, and love. What does peace mean? It means not getting ourselves into a situation that can be construed as violent or evil. Truth means we need to start sharing this content with everyone. You cannot sit down and be lethargic at this point. You must stand up and start talking to your neighbors and your friends, because information is being suppressed. My Facebook is out to 10 people, 5 people right now. My videos go nowhere. Nothing I do is getting out of my little bubble. And this is one of the major problems, that they're suppressing all kinds of information, and it's impossible to share this kind of thoughts with other people. So unless we all together can start consuming information and talking to our friends in truth, nothing's going to go anywhere. And then finally, it's about love. All of us have different pieces of information about what's happening. We don't agree on things. They're trying to divide us. And so the best way to do it is to listen first. Listen to other people's opinion, you know, and focus on respecting them and loving them as the top priority. At the end of the day, what we have to do is we've got to convince everybody that we are one. We are all one. Okay. So that's not their goal, obviously. They want to keep us distracted. They want to keep all kinds of chaos going. And in the background, they are pushing, they're slamming legislation through. So what happened? They're trying to discourage the base. Pence, good buddy Pence here, instead of doing what he should have done, which is to challenge the electors and say, hey, you have current litigation against these electors that were sent. You shouldn't be sending these until you resolve your issues. That's constitutional. Instead, he backstabbed Trump, and forget about Trump. Who cares about Trump? He backstabbed the people, right? There was this massive movement, and he didn't care. You can see that in the session. Now, we don't know what's on this piece of paper, but he's being handed something. You can see he's getting some type of coin and support. Again, a little something handoff going on there. Was that anything? I don't know. Maybe he just gets a little award. Tough to say. Tough to say what's going on. So I skipped this. One of the things to keep in mind is these guys don't play by the rules. So you saw all the ways that they were twisting information, right? With the Kylie McEnany's announcement that the White House condemns all violence, and that this group of like 1,000 rioters or whatever it was this small group of rioters subverted the will of thousands, right? So that's what they said, and then they twisted her to say, we condemn the president, right, in the captions. The captions, how detailed is that? Like, that's insane. Do you think that's a random mistake? Maybe. I don't know. Take a look at this, though. So let's get into real violence. So in 1983, Susan Rosenberg planted a bomb outside the Senate chamber to assassinate Republican senators. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler got President Clinton to pardon Susan Rosenberg. She tried to assassinate Republican senators. She got a pardon. She is now on the board of Black Lives Matter Network. Look at that. There's your bomb. So that's a little strange, right? Does that seem like they're playing by the rules? Here's another one. Bill Ayers, again, detonating a bomb in the Capitol. But he's on Twitter. No big deal. Who just got banned from Twitter? Trump did, along with 35,000 different conservatives. It's probably more than that now. Let's go over here to, I had one more of these, if I can find it. This guy. One of the men who was part of the siege at the Capitol building, John Earl Sullivan, extreme BLM activist from Utah. So he's been at other BLM activists, BLM protests, but he's an instigator. This guy looks like an instigator. He was arrested and charged on July 2020 over a BLM Antifa riot where somebody was shot. So he was at the Black Lives Matter movement. This is him being captured, and I believe he was released too, right now. Andy No, by the way, on Twitter, this guy studies Antifa. So he follows all their movement. He tracks these guys. He is the Antifa expert out there. So when he posts this, there's a high degree of credibility here. And let's just go take a look at his link. Okay, so this is the story from back in July 10th of this guy getting arrested already. And he was, once again, now remember, he's at a Black Lives Matter movement, creating all kinds of problems. Now he's at a Trump movement, creating all kinds of problems. What do you think this guy is? Is he a good guy? I mean, he's a person. He deserves our sympathy and our love, but at the end of the day, you're responsible for your actions, right? And this guy is responsible for instigating violence. Let's go take a look at what this is. I'm seeing 3 pictures here that I just noticed. All right, I am activist John. We got to rip that mother effer out of office. So over here, Andy No is saying this was a guy who was part of the Capitol siege building, an extreme activist, right? This is a post from this guy saying we've got to rip that MFer out of the office. Why was he at a Trump rally if he wants to rip that mother effer out of the office, right? What's going on? Fuck Trump. Trump 2020. Black Lives Matter. Antifa. Do you see what's going on here? This is insane. Do you think it's just this one person? I don't think so. I think there's more. All right, so what's going on with Pence, right? We showed this little thing of, this cute little graphic of Pence backstabbing. We showed this kind of suspect little thing of Trump getting this handoff from not one, but 2 different handoffs. So, whatever, we can disregard that. Let's go take a look at something else, though.
I kick off today's show by taking a deep dive into the world of Vice President Mike Pence. The great investigative journalist Jane Mayer has a fascinating expose on Pence in the recent issue of the New Yorker magazine. The title of it is The Danger of President Mike Pence. Jane is one of the best journalists of our time, and she was one of the first reporters to crack open the CIA torture and extraordinary rendition program under Bush and Cheney. She has written a number of books. Her latest work has focused on investigating the Koch brothers and other shady right-wing or Republican financiers. Her most recent book is called Dark Money: The Hidden History of the Billionaires Behind the Rise of the Radical Right. Jane Mayer joins me now. Jane, welcome to Intercepted.
Thank you so much for having me.
What I really found extraordinary about your piece is this notion of Mike Pence not really as a principled conservative Christian, but as a real opportunist willing to set aside what he claimed were his bedrock principles in favor of whatever his kind of corporate paymasters or political expediency dictates he should do. Is that your sense?
Yeah, and that was a surprise to me, too. I mean, I think everybody had thought of him as kind of defining social conservatism and evangelical Christianity. And in fact, what the reporting showed was that he's very ambitious. And he's made his deals when he needs to. And in fact, his whole career really has been nurtured, supported, and sponsored by huge right-wing corporate interests. And I hadn't realized that myself until I dug into it.
There was a sense that Mike Pence was kind of this like shitty magic penny to buy the Christian right, sort of like calm with the idea of Trump being president.
He definitely was. He was the bridge. He was the seal of good housekeeping that enabled the Christian right to come on board. And, you know, going to your first question about the surprise of how ambitious he was and how willing he was to cut deals when he needed to, I mean, it shouldn't have been a surprise because the biggest deal and the biggest sort of Faustian bargain that he's made was getting on the ticket with Donald Trump, who, of course, defines everything that Christian evangelicals say that they dislike, you know. His willingness to make that deal should have tipped everybody off.
You were able to get some pretty powerful quotes or assertions from Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. He, of course, is the Democratic senator from Rhode Island. And one of the things that he said to you was that if Mike Pence were to become president, that the government would be run by the Koch brothers. Maybe you can unpack that and explain the connection between, because the Koch brothers aren't known as fanatical Christian supremacists.
No, and I mean, and so isn't that interesting? The Kochs are libertarians, or you could call them neoliberals. They are supposedly people who believe in kind of social liberalism, but there they are having sponsored the career of Mike Pence. And I think it's a real tip-off to what the Kochs really care about. The issue that matters to them is not any of the social issues, no matter what they're saying. What matters to them is allowing business to take over the power in the country, and particularly their own business. So they're pushing back on regulations, and they're pushing back on taxes.
Now, I think a lot of people on the left hate the Koch brothers, and a lot of people on the right love Pence, and support the Koch brothers. But what's going on? I don't know if anybody really on the right supports Pence's treatment of Trump. And so this is kind of an interesting little example. Yet one more questionable thing about Pence. So again, the goal is to discourage us, to keep us in our houses, to make us feel defeated. Because what they can't do is they can't slip anything past an awake, an energized base of people where both left and right come together as one, stand in unity and peace and love, right? So just keep that in mind. This is our objective. One other thing to take a look at here. So we've got Trump. We also have Nancy Pelosi trying to pull a military coup, right? They're trying to get Trump out because if you can impeach him, he can't rerun for office. He can't do a lot of things. So, spokesman for General Milley, Colonel Davis Butler, confirmed that the two had spoken and said about Nancy Pelosi's questions regarding the process of nuclear command authority. So she was trying to say that Trump was dangerous. Let's see. Let's actually go to this link here first, so I'm not. All right, this is the New York Times. Nancy threatens House could move to impeach Trump if he doesn't resign immediately. Oh, my goodness. All right. Yeah, this is probably a much better link than this other one. What was this? Yeah, Independent Sentinel. Okay. So, Pelosi said she had spoken with General Mark A. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, about preventing an unstable president from initiating military hostilities or accessing the launch codes. So they're really trying to paint this as this revolution, this coup attempt. What said? So these military guys, again, that's what I was just reading, confirmed that they had spoken in question about her regarding the process of nuclear command authority. Now this is the Speaker of the House, you know? Why are they trying to? They have the congressional power. They don't have the executive branch power. Mr. Trump, they noted, is still the commander-in-chief, and unless he is removed, the military is bound to follow his lawful orders. While the military can refuse to carry out orders they view as illegal, they cannot proactively remove the president from the chain of command. That would be a military coup. Do you understand that the context of this is they're saying, no, Nancy, we can't and we will not do a coup. That's what they're saying. They're saying to remove Trump, which is what she had asked them to do, to remove his ability to do the launch codes. That would be a military coup, and they flatly rejected that. So, why is this going on? What is happening? Well, here's just one graph. I want to get deeper into this down the road, but here's just one example of what's happening. So, this is China outbound mergers and acquisitions. versus inbound mergers and acquisitions by year. Now look at this timeline down here. We're starting in 2000. The Chinese mergers and acquisitions very low, very low, very low. In 2008, they spike. This is when Obama was elected. And they're going down, a little bit more stable. Look at, by the time they're at 2016, a huge number of mergers and acquisitions occurred. And now look at since Trump. What happened? They've been back down to the ground. Now, this may mean something, may not. I've got a lot more of this that will be coming out in future videos. But I would contend that let's go back to this graphic. In a healthy, peaceful society, the establishment and the populist base are working together to achieve the vision and goals of our nation. And the Democratic and Republican are working together to hold on to the core true values and try to be inclusive to as many people as possible, right? That is the dream. That is when we're all centered in the middle. When you have the establishment trying to take it, why would the establishment drift up to the top here? Why would they drift up to the top? That's what we would call self-interest. And what is the self-interest? Well, I would contend that they're being bought off by business interests, which are being bought off by Chinese interests. And that's what this is showing right here. This is Chinese mergers and acquisitions. If China owns all of our military, if China owns a huge amount of our businesses and of our public land, not public land, but our private land ownership, right? They're buying up all kinds of things. Then China has a huge vested interest in what happens with our political system. And I think that's what you're starting to see. This does not feel like an American political system serving the people, not when you have Black Lives Matter and Trumpians all coming out in support, essentially unified voice, saying something is wrong with our system. Now, we're all complaining about different parts of that system, and that's why we need to talk together and get on the same page. But we're all coming out and saying something is wrong with the system. And yet they continue to manipulate and deceive us. All right, so let's just do a little fun little video.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism. And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation. Well, isn't this the liberal philosophy? The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Now, he's talking about this left-right spectrum here. I would argue that is not necessarily the case. I think it's this top-down spectrum is where fascism comes into play. That's the real danger. So don't be deceived by, again, this could have very well been a lie. I don't know. I don't know what to believe other than this idea that it's Democrats versus Republicans is not true. It is right now the establishment versus the populists. The establishment has abdicated its duty to provide strategic implementation of the populist's will, right? Instead, or the vision that the population wants. Instead, they are taking their own vision for themselves and really tearing the country apart. All right, so last but not least, I want to end this on a little ray of hope because I think this has been depressing. And you know, label me a conspiracy theorist. I'm hoping that I've given you plenty of evidence here, so that at least you may not disagree, you may not agree with me, but I'm hoping that it will at least give you some questions, right? And you should be doing your own digging. I think that the population, we need to be informed. We need to be vocal about our beliefs. We need to be willing to listen to each other and understand that only by talking together are we going to come to figure out what's going on here. But let me just show you one thing that I think is very interesting. So during the break-ins, we talked about how Antifa and Black Lives Matter, I actually showed that one guy, and I can dig up others too if we need to, how they had kind of been part of that front lines. We saw them handing baseball bats out. We saw them smashing windows, and the mass of people, even in my own personal video, the mass of people saying, hey, stop that. That is not okay, right? Now, one of the pictures that went far and wide were these guys, Buffalo Head Man, right? So this guy, everybody's like, oh, he's Antifa, he's Antifa. This guy's a Trump supporter, supposedly. And I just want to show you one little thing here. This is going to be a little crazy. All right, so Alice Kennedy, the Alice Kennedy, said, he's my brother. So this guy's a Kennedy, supposedly. they were claiming that this this tattoo was a pedophile symbol. So the pedophiles use symbolism to kind of go under the radar, and that's what they were claiming. Actually, it means that he's a Marine, and this is one of the tattoos. Let me actually go down here. The most common people with these tattoos, they're honoring a deceased loved one or friend. This is especially true of someone who's lost someone who's died in war. So keep in mind that this is not, you know, don't listen to the propaganda on this. This is not the pedophile symbol. It is a little bit different. All right, this is another person saying it's a Nordic symbol, not pedophile. And I'm hearing that he may have recorded conversations and video footage of inside Antifa. So what did this guy do? He infiltrated Antifa. That's why people were saying this guy's Antifa, because he was part of the Antifa group. But is he really, right? So Antifa, what did Antifa do to the Trump movement and to the Black Lives Matter movement? They infiltrated that movement. What are these other people doing to the Antifa? They're infiltrating Antifa. This is where, if you haven't been watching Project Veritas, these other organizations, watch them, because it's not just a one-way game. There are good guys on both. There's good guys in the mix too, right? All right. So look at this. This is him, Buffalo Head Man, shaking the hand of Rudy Giuliani, right? This is him, Buffalo Head Man, with OAN news reporter. This chick is great. She's OAN. OAN's been super, super supportive. Look at this. Over here, another one. Checkmate. We got you. This guy is a Trump supporter. Look at this. This is footage, or this is a picture of him in the U.S. military. Okay, let me go. The bad guys didn't want today's vote to happen, right? So what happened with the thing today? Or on the 6th, they planned on using Antifa to infiltrate the Capitol to delay it. So they broke into the Capitol at the perfect time. That's when the hearings were going on. That's when all the evidence should have come out, and what happened? They all had to evacuate because, oh, this dangerous riot, right? They're now painting it as if my brother stormed the Capitol and took control, as if Buffalo Headman stormed the Capitol and took control. What actually happened was the bad guys paid people off. Okay, so what they didn't know is that they were paying this guy, this Antifa guy, to come in, and he is special operations, it looks like. So here's a little picture of him. And what did they actually do inside the Capitol? So we saw a little picture of the guys, a video of the guys in the Capitol building just sitting around, you know, saying, oh, I call this room, I call that room, dancing in the window, doing all this stuff. That was the, you know, that was the handful of Trump supporters that got in there because they were just, the door was open and they went in. I almost went in myself. The cops all came out, so I was prevented from going in. But this was such a peaceful riot in my location, right? In my area, there was, I saw two violent actions. One was a person threw a, like the top of a crate thing, like a big square thing, threw it, and it hit an officer on the head and kind of almost knocked him out. So that was like, whoa, don't do that. And the guy recovered. It looked like it was fine. And there was another one where an officer turned and started batoning a guy, and that was pretty extreme. Those were the two things I saw. Both of those are shown in my video. Other than that, that was the worst it got, right? Not extreme violence. So you saw that it wasn't super violent, and then the Trump supporters kind of got in, and they were milling around. I actually totally lost my train of thought, so I'll just go to the next one. Sorry about that. Okay, so he was at, what were they actually doing in the Capitol then? Why would the good guys be in the Capitol as well? Well, this may be true, it may be false, but here's a little picture of laptops that they recovered. So I think one of the things that we're seeing is that this is an information war more than anything else. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There will be more evidence coming out on this. I personally have more evidence on this stuff just from searching the web, right? If you just get a good search engine and you know where to look, and by the way, in my infographics now, I'm trying to post this thing called Patriots Toolkit. I'm trying to give you the tools and the resources to get out of this. This is a mind war. This is psychological warfare. This is spiritual warfare. This is not a physical war yet, and we need to prevent the physical war. This is information war, and this represents some of the information that they may or may not have captured. I don't know. This could be propaganda too, right? This goes very deep. This is really confusing to everybody. That is one thing. What isn't confusing is that this guy definitely looks like he is not Antifa. He was in here for a reason. He's an ex-soldier. He's a Kennedy. He is with Giuliani, with OAN, and looks like there could be some good news coming out as well. So, and let me just go double check here. Did I have anything else? Yes. So I want to leave us on kind of a positive note. And let's see what happens.
The what?
By the way, I apologize for the eye glare. I thought this was possibly a deep fake because it looks so trippy. The one thing to keep in mind with the deep fake is there are a lot of people here, and I think it would be complex to do this deep of a fake. Possibly not. So take this with a grain of salt. I know the eyes look really weird, but let's go.
Pelosi's laptop, is it with FBI today?
I wouldn't give it to the FBI.
Yeah, right.
Someone else. Ann's got pictures of it.
Okay.
And I thought that was counter-information operations on us.
So he's saying the same thing I was saying, which is these laptops. So here we go. National Guard got the laptops and the Democrats left them behind. Democrats and rhino traders, they're essentially saying establishment, right? Most people are still talking on the left-right spectrum. This is not a left-right issue. This is a top-down issue. And it's not establishment and populace. I think there's still a decent amount of people in the establishment that are good people. It's the very top. There are a handful of people, just like the instigators in the crowds, right? You might have 1 million people come out, and 100 of them or 1,000 of them are bad, right? Well, those people can wield a lot of power if the population goes with them. Same thing with the establishment. There's a lot of good people, a lot of really good. Think about the law officers, right? You probably go to church with them. You might play sports with them. They're good people. But they can be subverted by if you hold key positions of authority and if you follow those orders. We must think for ourselves. We must become educated about this stuff. So, like I was saying, I wasn't sure whether these laptops, did they really get these? Is this misinformation? I don't know. That's what this guy's saying too. He's saying, I thought it was I thought it was misinformation. I'll go back just a little bit, right? He thought it was misinformation.
And I thought that was counter-information operations on us. But no, Ann, I've seen the laptop our special forces took out. That's why she's so frantic. Think about it. You only got, 12 days?
So he's saying, why is Pelosi trying to impeach Trump right now? Just wait 12 days. He's almost out. There's no big deal. Does her behavior make any sense? She's trying to, do you remember, New York Times has it right here. This is in the subtext. She tried to pull a military coup. Why are they doing this? Well, it's because the information's out. They're not in control of the narrative. They are desperately, desperately trying to keep this looking good. They need to get control of the military, and they need us to let them do this, and we cannot allow that.
The 20th today's the 12 days. Now let them go out. But they're calling. She calls the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The vice president misses the opportunity. And unfortunately, I believe the vice president's committed treason.
Now we're going to.
So, who is that old guy? Let's take a look.
Be listening to the full interview of General Thomas McInerney. But first, I wanted to show you all of his credentials, as his rank is a 3-star general, lieutenant general, 3rd Tactical Fighter Wing, and you can just read all of his credentials for yourself, and you can look at all these awards that he has got for serving in our U.S. military. This is no slouch of a man. This is a very highly decorated, respected man of our U.S. military.
All right. So just keep that in mind. They're going to try to discredit this guy, but he's got some serious credentials. So if you believe in experts, this guy is an expert, right? This guy is an expert. All right, last thing. Now again, believe what you will, right? I just want to show you information.
About 3 years ago, a group of generals came to me, and it was explained to me they were ready to conduct a coup d'etat. They were ready to move Barack Obama from office with military force. And then a few weeks later, I got another call and said that they were reconsidering. You know why they were reconsidering? No, why? Because they talked to Donald Trump. And Trump agreed that he would run. And they agreed that if he would run, they would conduct their coup d'etat as a legitimate process, rooting out the traitors within government. And that pact between the military and Donald Trump has held. As we've been interpreting and watching, and Alex has been following QAnon, QAnon is military intelligence and close to Trump. And the intelligence we're getting really is a lot of the inside script. Now, everybody says Donald Trump is going to lose, he's going to be out of office, he's going to be impeached. You watch CNN, MSNBC, they're throwing a party today, and all the 20 people watching them across the nation are very enthused. Donald Trump will not be removed from office. He will not be removed from office.
All right. So, believe what you will. I don't want to tell anybody what to think or what to believe, but I do. My takeaway from the events on the 6th is that this is much deeper than I was thinking it was. And I believe that Christ is king and Donald Trump is president. And with that, I'll